Hello and welcome to Everyday Tarot, your daily dive into the divine wisdom of the tarot. I'm your host, Camille A. Saunders, healer, tarot reader, and professional witch, and today I'm talking about the color red in color magic. Whether you're a seasoned tarot reader or just starting to explore, this podcast offers daily insights, intuitive messages, and practical advice drawn from the cards. Each episode is designed to help you connect with your inner wisdom, find clarity in your decisions, and tap into the energy of the universe. Tune in every day, Monday through Friday, for fresh perspectives and empowering guidance from the tarot as interpreted by me. If you love the show, the best way to support it for free is by listening daily, leaving a review, and subscribing or following in your favorite podcast app. If you love the podcast and want to support it further, I have some other offers as well. You can join the Everyday Tarot Patreon family, where you can get cards pulled for you, either an individual card or a 5-card reading as part of the benefits. You can check out my New Moon Collective Tarot readings. The latest one was from October 21st, 2025, and I'll be doing one in a couple of days for the next new moon. I have the Queer Coven Spooky Tarot spread that I created as part of the Queer Joy Summit bonus, but I wanted to give everyone a chance to grab it, even if you weren't a part of the summit. So it's Halloween and queer themed 6-card spread that you can grab. I was also recently on Kayla Moore's Connected Pleasure podcast. You can check out my episode of Kayla's podcast, where we talked all about living by the body, dreaming of land, and weaving the future. You can check out what Kayla does in there at connectedpleasurecoaching.com, and you can look forward to Kayla being on this podcast as well in my guest season. That will probably be the last season wrap up of 2025. I am looking for more guests to be on the podcast, so if you're interested or know someone that might be a good fit, please fill out my form to be a guest on the podcast, or you can send me folks' contact information if someone else you know or would like to hear from might want to be a guest. If you want to work with me more directly and maybe you don't live local to me, you can check out my Tarot for Transformation workshops that I'm kicking off starting in January 2026, where we'll be deep diving into the first 12 of the major arcana cards to discover our best selves and create a life worth living. So if you're interested in that, sign up and I'll send you more information on what that's going to look like, when to sign up, how much tickets are, etc. If you don't already know, I'm a sex and relationship therapist and coach, seeing individual and relational clients virtually all over from my home office. I love working with queer, poly, and witchy clients, so if you like to work with me one-on-one, you can book a free consultation now to start your journey at CamilleASaunders.com. I also have done a workshop talking about how to create your own tarot cards, and maybe you're like, oh, I don't have the art skills for that. Well, no worries. I will teach you how to create your own tarot cards with collage. So you can get my full workshop, which has the hour-long recording, my step-by-step method, examples of cards I've created, journaling questions, and a PDF to walk you all through it for just $33. So the link is in the show notes to grab that now. Perfect for winter time as we go into the cooler, darker months of the year to get your craft on. If you want to grab another one of my tarot spreads, I created a 2025 5-card tarot spread at the beginning of this year, and you can get that for free by joining my newsletter list. My weekly newsletter always has the most up-to-date information on upcoming events, presentations, musings, and info and photos of my day-to-day life. If you're local and want to meet me in person, you can check out the Let's Talk Tarot meetup group. Our next event will be part of the Full Moon Women's Circles that I've been doing. So we'll celebrate the last full moon of 2025. So you can join my colleague Izzy and I under the glow of the moon for an evening of connection, reflection, and ritual. We meet at Thresholds Collective in Tacoma the first Sunday of the month to welcome in the full moon together. So the last one that we have coming up is on December 7th. So tickets are up for that already, and we would love to see you there. And you can find the links for any of these offers in the show notes or on my website, CamilleASaunders.com/everydaytarot, in addition to the images of the cards I pull for each episode. All right, welcome to season 18, where I'm talking all about color magic. If you haven't listened to my other seasons yet, you can check those out. And today I'm talking about the color red. So let's get into it. When we think about the color red, If you remember your sort of like color wheel, again, maybe from elementary school. So red is the color at the long wavelength end of the visible spectrum of light, hence why it is on one side of the rainbow. It's next to orange and opposite of violet. Again, if you imagine the color wheel where it shows sort of opposite colors, right? Of course, it is a primary color in the red, green, blue color model. And let's see what else. And reds range obviously from like scarlet to bluish red crimson, and then you know, from pale red pink to dark red burgundy. So technically pink is part of the red color spectrum, even though we often in modern era think of pink as its own separate color. Red is, like, historically, it was one of the first colors used in prehistoric art. Ancient Egyptians and Mayans colored their faces red in ceremony. Roman generals had their bodies colored red to celebrate victories. Also an important color in China, where it's used to color early pottery and gates and walls of palaces as well. In the Renaissance era, there were red, you know, costumes for the nobility and wealthy as well. Right, we have the sort of, red becomes the symbolic color of communism and socialism in Soviet Russia, and the Soviet red banner. China adopted its own red flag following the Chinese Communist Revolution. And then we also think of, right, red is the color of blood, historically been used as sacrifice, danger, and courage. And when surveys are taken across Europe and the United States about what people associate with, it's also the color associated with heat, activity, passion, sexuality, anger, love, and joy. And then in China, India, and many other Asian countries, it's a color symbolizing happiness and good fortune. So a strong, right, sort of happy, courageous color, I would say. On rachelpatterson.co.uk, talking about color magic, they associate red with the fire element, strength, power, energy, health, vigor, enthusiasm, courage, passion, sexuality, vibrancy, survival, and driving force. If we utilize my days of the week correspondences that I've talked about before, so red is associated with the planet Mars and the god Ju. Let me check that real quick. Or Jehovah. So red is associated with magic, dealing with athletics, competitions, conflicts, courage, hunting, legality, logic, physical strength, politics, vitality, and war. So if you ever see me on a Tuesday, I will be wearing red or pink generally because of this. And yeah, for me, I know the days of the week in Spanish. And Tuesday is Martes, and that helps me remember that it's the planet Mars. All right, so when we think about red, the color red symbolism in tarot, I'm pulling from the tarotprofessor.com about color symbolism in tarot. So many tarot cards have red on them, including some of the most powerful figures in tarot, especially in the traditional Rider-Waite-Smith deck, which is what this article is in particular is talking about. So what do figures like the Magician, the Emperor, and Justice have in common? They all wear bright red robes in the Rider-Waite-Smith deck. So why are they wearing red? Red is a power color. It conveys power, passion, strength, ability, and leadership. So think about it. Red is a power color for many people in life too, right? We think of like important, if you have an important date, presentation, or event coming up, you might want to make a bold, confident statement. You might opt for a red dress, blazer, or red lipstick, or even red nail polish. The power behind the color red is ingrained in our collective unconscious. Since the tarot reflects the universal human experience as seen through a Western lens in particular, that's exactly why the deck incorporates red in the same way. So if you think about other cards in the tarot deck,
deck, where red represents power and strength, we can take a look at the Eight of Cups. So in the traditional Rider-Waite-Smith deck, the card depicts a figure not only in a red cloak, but in red boots, and it's the only red on the card. The Eight of Cups is a very intense card, represents leaving behind relationships and situations that are no longer serving you. It takes a lot of guts and power to do that, which is why the figure is donned in red. If the decision and journey in this card were made on a whim or in a leisurely way, the figure would probably be wearing a different color. So yeah, again, you can look across your tarot decks, or you can look up Rider-Waite-Smith tarot deck and look at where red is utilized as well. So I went ahead and grabbed my own decks. Today I'm looking at the Sacerobito Tarot deck by Stasia Barrington and the Therapist Who Tarot deck, prompts by Drea Bloom and images by Rebecca Bloom, and pulled out some red cards from there. So we have, let's see, we'll start with the Sacerobito Tarot, where I pulled the Five of Swords and the Nine of Cups and the King of Cups. So in the Five of Swords card, right, again, fives are often, almost always about some kind of conflict in tarot. And right, red gets associated with the conflict, the sort of like war. If we think of the element of fire, right, wands are associated with fire. So in the other deck, I'll talk about a wands card, but here we have, right, swords and cups, which not traditionally associated with the fire element, but again, fives are often about conflict. The Five of Swords is generally about the idea that sort of your own biting words or kind of self-judgment is being used against you. In this card, it depicts someone that has their hand out, and on each of their five fingers, there is a tiny like dagger, almost as if, again, like you are inflicting damage on yourself in this way. And then we also have, like I said, the Nine of Cups and King of Cups. King is obviously like an important, relevant card. So he's wearing a sort of red-orange tunic, I would say, in this one. And then we also have the Nine of Cups, which is a bit more of the sort of like love, generous self-love element of it. So we do have a bit more of like a pink color. It depicts like a figure that's almost like sitting on its own rose petals. We have these red flowers all around. We have the person putting their hand on their chest, and actually there's like red underneath their hand, almost as if the like love or passion is going back towards them. And again, it's a very sort of like self-love type card when I look at it. So those are from the Sacerobito Tarot deck. And then when I pulled things from the Therapist Who Tarot deck, two red cards, major arcana cards I pulled were the Hermit and the Tower. So the Hermit, right, is about that quest for personal growth. Again, like major arcana cards are pretty much all strong, kind of courageous cards in their own way. This Hermit one is very like fire coded, I would say. It like depicts a person, almost like their soul in the middle of them, and then like a human image, and then almost like a fire like coming out of them in these different ways, or almost as if they're like standing in the middle of a tree with these different layers of oranges and reds. Let's see. And then we have the Tower, which, right, is about sort of ruin, often like combustion or destruction or chaos. And here it almost looks like, it's not exactly, but it almost looks like someone took a fingerprint of their thumb and like placed it and enlarged it on the card, and all of the little marks on it are red or pink or sort of burgundy colors. So we have this sort of, again, like catastrophe sort of, right, which again, if we think of like fire and like combustion, sparks, right, the Tower is that. Sometimes it depicts, right, a lightning struck tower. So again, we have that sort of like fire element of lightning coming through, and right, intense energy and power and strength coming in and changing something, basically alchemically, right? If we think of lightning and how if it hits different things, it will literally change rocks, right? Like sand into glass or rocks into something else as part of that process. So yeah, we have the Hermit and the Four of Wands there, right? And hermiting takes like its own courage, right? To leave, to sort of excise yourself from society and sort of to try to figure out the thing, to learn the thing, and then come back to teach it, right? That requires also a lot of power and passion and strength and leadership even. And then the last card I pulled, there were, a couple more red ones, but I liked this one, the Four of Wands. So again, we do have wands as sort of the fire element in tarot. So, right, that makes sense. And I think actually all the wands cards in this have red wands on them, and the name, like the Four of Wands, and the word associated with it on this one is marriage. That is in red on these wands cards in this deck. So part of it is saying, right, all that wands cards fall into this. But this card, right, it talks about marriage as the word associated with it actually. So like community, right, friendships, value, like what are you celebrating? So it's this kind of, again, sort of this like alchemical process of what happens when you bring people together. They create something larger than like the sum of its parts. And I believe that is part of this idea here. I think we'll keep it shorter today. So I'm going to go ahead and pull from, I think I'll pull from the Goddess of Love tarot deck, a very red pink coated deck, right? Love is like another thing that gets, very associated with the color red, like red hearts, right? And that kind of thing. So how can we work with the color red today? And as I'm thinking about this and recording this, it's actually Friday for me, which is Venus Day or Frigg. And so Venus is more associated, right, with the pink, the red, the love, and this deck is very much a Venusian style deck. So how can I work with the color red today? Oh, look at that. I pulled the Hermit. So again, right, we're thinking about, we are journeying, right? This card has a red heart on it and a red background. It has sort of like red pomegranates, I think, on it as well. I'm gonna look real quick at what the reading for this is in this deck with my last remaining minutes. So it says, yeah, associated with the goddess of Demeter and the astrological correspondence of Virgo. To know the goddess is to know darkness, the void, the womb, the impenetrable nothingness. This is the dark night of the soul. This is the vision that must be carried out at all costs, no matter how isolating. As a mother goddess who rules over the fertility of the earth, Demeter is intimately tied to the cycles of birth and death as well as love, as reflected by her intense devotion to her daughter Persephone, right? While mourning Persephone's abduction to be Hades' consort, Demeter emerges as the hermit, venturing through darkness, mourning, and loneliness. Her journey persists for half of each year as Persephone leaves her mother once again to rule over the underworld. The hermit speaks of the need to find center and refuge within the self. Some alone time and recalibration are needed. Rekindle your relationship to your heart and erotic self. Solitude is often necessary to understand your own drives and fantasies, as well as what you want out of any sort of relationship. Climb the mountain of your heart to the seat of the goddess and pour your sorrows into her lap. I love that. Okay, so thank you to the Goddess of Love tarot deck, and that's by Gabriella Herstick, and images are illustrated by Julia Popescu as we pulled the Hermit card here. So to wrap up, if you'd like to join me on the journey of using the tarot for transformation, you can click on the link in the show notes to indicate your interest. We'll be working together for 12 months of workshops. There. Links for the tarot decks I talk about will always be in the show notes and on my website if you want to look at them or purchase them. And thanks for joining me today on Everyday Tarot. Just as a reminder, the podcast comes out daily, Monday through Friday for all of 2025. You can email me, me@CamilleASaunders.com with your thoughts, questions, and more. All right, see you soon. Bye-bye.